Time now for sports on 104.7 The Cave. Here's Ned Reynolds.
Mike, the intern, Ned Reynolds, back in the studio Tuesday morning. Had a pretty good Chiefs happy hour last night at the Alamo. Great crowd and pretty good conversation, and I think we have a pretty good idea what kind of team we're going to have this year.
I think that Mitch Holtis and Danon Hughes did a really good job of outlining what was going to happen, what might happen. They're enthusiastic, of course, and optimistic, but I've seen them much more so in past years. Well, that's good. You've got to keep it under control. I think the Chiefs will probably have a pretty good team, but it's all based on what the quarterback can get done and the injuries to be avoided and so forth and so on. There's the key factor, Mike, that you can't really take and quantify at all, because who knows what the rate of attrition is going to be. There will be some, there always is. But the Chiefs, I think, are probably built to withstand anything unless it's the key man, Patrick Mahomes, which it was last year. Of course, the Chiefs were already having a bad season to begin with, but by the same token, losing him was really the footnote, so to speak, to a really lackluster effort at 6-11. Can they be 11-6 this year? Yeah, I think so. I think it'll be very interesting. But the conversation was good. I think the folks enjoyed it, and let's get it underway.
Yeah, and speaking of which, if you didn't know, Mitch goes up to St. Joseph and stays with the team, and he's on campus the entire month, and he has to report this weekend. So does everybody else, right?
Well, I think Mitch has been married quite a few years, like maybe 30, 35, somewhere around there. So his wife and family, they know fully well what's up. But that's right, he stays with the team.
And when can we expect them to go through their first workout?
The first workout will be 1 week from tomorrow. The rookies and the free agents report to camp on Friday, this coming Friday. And they go through probably some slight drills there. But then everybody else, the rest of the club, arrives 1 week from today, and then the following day, which will be a week from tomorrow, they're out on the field going through their drills. Now, the Wednesday drills are closed, except to season ticket holders. I beg your pardon, it's to big donors, I guess is what it is. I'm not sure, but there are some restrictions on who can be there. Thursday, it's open to the public. That's a week from this coming Thursday. And everybody wants that to happen. First exhibition game's coming up on August the 15th.
It is. And, like I said, last night is the kickoff as far as I'm concerned for the season, after the draft, of course, and Mickey Rookie Camp. And, yeah, like I said, Mitch, he goes up on Friday just like the rookies do. They start practicing next week. The first one, the Wednesday, is exclusive to season ticket holders.
It's season ticket holders.
It's all season ticket holders.
I knew that it was restricted in a lot of respects, but that's what it is.
But the first one is, yeah. And it's a team autograph session. What they've done this year, and I can't remember if they did it this way last year, but I also kind of like it this way, is it sucks that they don't have any afternoon practices like they used to. Back in the day, probably... Right, it was around COVID, actually. It was before COVID. They'd always have maybe like 2 or 3 that would start at noon or later. And so it'd be easier for us, those of us down here that didn't want to stay the night in just St. Joe or Kansas City, so you didn't have to get up at 4 in the morning to drive up there. Well, now they start at 9 across the board. And this year, and I think it's the first year, they've actually are saying what players are going to do the autographs. You know, because normally you go up there, you take a chance. Sometimes Patrick and Travis and everyone else would come over in your area. Sometimes they wouldn't. Sometimes it'd just be a bunch of rookies or, whatever. This year, they'll tell you what day on their website, like wide receivers, tight ends are signing today. Linebackers are signing today. So keep that in mind if you're planning on going up to St. Joseph to get some autographs, Ned. Now, we had, from what I can tell, based on all the reports and what the players have said, the United States and Mexico and Canada did a pretty good job hosting the World Cup.
Mostly USA.
Yeah, of course.
Which is not to downgrade Canada and Mexico at all, because they were very much in the picture too. But most of the matches were held in this country. And the comment that I find to be very interesting is that the travelers, many of whom are here for the very first time coming to the United States, they were very pleased. This isn't at all what we expected. And I have a sneaking suspicion I know why, but they said, well, the people are nice and friendly. Well, we are, but we're not portrayed that way by certain elements of our society. And I'm not going to get into that because I've already ranted enough, but the fact of the matter remains that the the general population from the other countries here for the event, I think were very pleased with what they saw.
Yeah, and again, from what I could tell, everyone had a blast. So that's what it's all about.
President Trump wants it back. He wants the World Cup back here, told them that, but it probably won't be until 2038 at the earliest, because that's when the North American turn in their rotation arrives again. Next up, and we've talked about this one, is in 2030, and that's hosted by Spain, Morocco, and Portugal. And then in 2034, it is hosted by Saudi Arabia. They'll have the World Cup in that country, those countries. Then back in 2038, we're in the mix again. We'll see how FIFA decides to do it, and I would be very surprised if it's not back here.
It would be nice to see it. Spain getting it next is huge after they won it, so it'll be a little bit. I'll be in my mid-40s when it comes. Start with the St. Louis Cardinals in Los Angeles against one of the worst teams in baseball, and I say that with an open heart because my Royals also not that much further away from these guys' record, but these are the games the Cardinals absolutely have to win.
And they did not. They did not win their opener, and I really felt like they needed to go into Anaheim and take 3. Now, the best they can do is 2 out of 3. But it's interesting. We were talking about this yesterday at our Chiefs rally with some friends. They said, boy, how do you explain the Cardinals? And I said, it's a magic carpet ride, and you've seen teams like this where everything goes right for them. And it did in the first half. And, Mike, we talked about it on this show. Hey, they're getting the breaks and all this sort of thing, and they're winning. Well, now, the pendulum has begun to swing. And it's the loss to the Arizona Diamondbacks on Sunday is indicative. 7-0 lead, lose at 8-7. Last night, the Cardinals led 2-1 going into the last of the 9th inning. Now, keep in mind, the Los Angeles Angels are not a very good team at all. They do have Mike Trout on the ball club and Jorge Soler and people like that, but they're just simply not a very good team. 2-1, last of the 9th inning. First guy is out. Next batter up, I think, walks, and then the next batter after that is hit by a pitch. Oh, this is not good at all. Then a double ties up the ball game. Eventually, the Angels load the bases. The Cardinals bring in their all-star reliever, Riley O'Brien, and I've never seen this happen before. Obviously, it can happen, and did last night. Bases loaded, and Riley O'Brien hits the batter. That's a walk-off hit batter. Winning run comes in. Angels win it 3-2. Not good at all. They'll play again tonight, and then again tomorrow afternoon, and then come home for one game with the Diamondbacks, and then a weekend series with the Reds. So all is not lost, certainly, but you can't afford to drop too many more of these.
Like I said, in evincing, the opposite could be said for the Royals, where there's 20 games this year where they score 8 runs, the opposite team scores 9 in the 8th and 9th inning. And it's happened so many times it's almost comical, but now the Royals seem to be doing pretty good. At least the last 2 weeks they
are playing right now the San Francisco Giants, who are having a historically bad season.
Yep.
So last night the Giants trailed the Kansas City Royals going into the 9th inning, but San Francisco tied the game. They have it 3-3 going into the 9th. But the Giants' defense, and this is interesting because the manager this year has never managed in the big leagues before. It's Coach Vitello from University of Tennessee, a St. Louis product. He is handling the Giants. They made some really key defensive mistakes in the last of the 9th inning. The Royals get a key RBI hit from Nick Lofton to bring in Josh Rojas with the winner. Kansas City wins it by a score of 4-3 over San Francisco, but no thanks at all. Well, thanks for the Royals, but no thanks to the Giants' bad defensive plays, and you don't see that in Major League Baseball, but it did happen.
Now that the British Open is completed, what's the next big golfing tournament?
Well, there's several, of course, lesser tournaments that are going on, and a couple of tournaments are before the big ones in August, and these are the very lucrative events. It's the FedEx Cup, and it begins on August the 15th with the St. Jude Children's Classic, which is a $20 million signature event. The next one after that is the BMW Classic. These are all leading up to the final. BMW Classic is also I think it's a $22 million event, and it is held at Belle Reve up in St. Louis, one of the historic great golf courses in the Midwest, and certainly one that's been utilized for some big events. And then the final is at East Lake in Atlanta, and that's where the purse, Mike, is $40 million. $40 million. And the winner, and I believe I'm right on this, the winner gets $20 million. That's a lot. And you know all the big names. The key is that the field is cut after each one of the rounds. After the St. Jude Classic in Memphis, they'll cut the field to the lower number. Then it gets cut after the BMW Classic, and then they have, I think, 33, if I'm not mistaken, 33 golfers vying for the big prize, and that makes it a huge event.
And a big old payday for someone, Ned. Have a great Tuesday, get some rest, and I'll see you tomorrow.